So I've been dealing with a lot of grief recently, personally and impersonally, through the loss of two different family members within the course of 3 months. And one of them I did not witness pass away. My grandpa, he passed away and he lived in California, and so I simply, heard of his death. But my uncle, which was his brother, was living with me because he was really sick. And me and my mom found him dead in his room, and he passed in his sleep. So I saw him dead there. And that was really tough. That was really difficult. And it's been a hell of a journey trying to, what started out as one funeral being planned ended up being two funerals in one, planned for the same day, with one only having like a week to be able to figure out, right? So you can imagine it's been a lot of grief and turbulence for my family to go through. So I wanted to just talk about what this indirect and direct confrontation with mortality has kind of taught me about life, or at least is planting the seeds of teaching me about life. I think that we don't realize how much our life centers around the fear of death until we see death. For example, anxiety, right? If you're anything like me, you tend to be quite an anxious person. Well, anxiety at the very root is a primal self-defense mechanism. Started out, way back when we were still cavemen. Anxiety was a self-preservation mechanism to be able to evade and escape predators. Over time, it's evolved from less of a physical survival, immediate impact of a situation, to a more existential, philosophical, psychological state that we struggle with. And I think that when you think about it deeply enough, you realize that a lot of the things that we are anxious about is this like deep fear of like, if I died now, would I be okay with that? And that question, I feel like it's really bothersome and difficult, because you never know when your current moment's going to be your last. And so a lot of the anxiety that goes into for example, the optimization of our life, right? Like feeling like you have to have everything in control, like how I talked about in my last video, and how I'm trying to release that control through spirituality. So if you want to learn more about that, we can check out my previous video. But I think that when you get to the root of it, a lot of the optimization that we try to do in our life comes from this deep fear of like, if I died right now, like, would this be enough? Like, would I have lived a good life? Would I have lived a, acceptable life? And when you say acceptable, I feel like that comes in from, a multitude of angles. That's culturally, socially, morally, ethically, etc., right? It's easy to get so caught up in this anxiety of optimization, not realizing that in the blink of an eye, everything that you think matters, everything that you feel like is important to you or that you're striving for, all these things can be gone in a blink of an eye, be completely gone. Like seeing my dead uncle there on the floor before the medical examiners took him away, you can see that everything behind his eyes is gone, right? And there's nothing but a void there now, right? His soul has left his body, right? And when you see that, and then you just try to go back to your normal life, it's hard to not question, like, what does this all mean? Like, what does this really matter if everything that you think matters can be gone just like that? And I think that the anxiety of trying to get all of our ducks in line and feel like we're doing the right things and that we're impressing the right people and that we're reaching the right milestones, I feel like all those things can just not matter, like, out of nowhere. And so you're probably thinking like, okay, well then how do we navigate that? Like, how do we adapt to that realization without drifting into nihilism? Because my point is not saying that, oh, like nothing matters, and so, stop trying, who cares, because you're going to die at any moment, right? I think that that's a very just low level thinking way of looking at death, like seeing it as, well, I'm going to die at any moment, so why should I strive for anything? Why should I improve? Like, why should I care about, being the best version of myself when I'm just going to die at any moment, right? Now, that's not a completely, incomprehensible idea, right? It makes sense. But the issue with that is that when you peel apart the layers of that statement, it's really just a mega dose of cope with a person's inability to accept responsibility for their life and do the things that they know they need to do to make their life better. There's this wonderful quote on that whole kind of idea where, if someone convinces themselves that nothing matters, then they have every excuse to not do anything about it. Right? And I think that that is the low level thinking of, how someone might approach this confrontation with mortality, is looking at it as like, okay, well, if you can die at any moment, who fucking cares about anything? But just live it up, be, hedonistic, live for the moment, do what makes you feel good, right? Because you're going to die at any moment, so who cares, right? I think that the more mature way of looking at this situation is, realizing that life is not always about, what you can make better, or planning for the future, or just constantly tearing yourself up about what you don't have and could get, or feeling like you're not doing enough and burning yourself out, right? It's like all these things that we're so worried about. Instead of that, why don't we start worrying about, like, okay, how can I appreciate life for what it is now? How can I reap the fruits of my labor now? Why do I always have to wait to get to a certain point to enjoy the fruits of my labor? Why do I always have to set a date for when I get to relax and feel happy, right? Or to feel some contentment with life, right? Like, if you're watching this video, like, you're alive as fuck right now. We're both alive as fuck. Like, think about that for a second. Like, just take a step back, take a bird's eye view of reality, and just think for a moment. Like, the fact that you're even alive and that you have a chance to do anything is a miracle. Like, you could be dead as fuck. You could be dead as fuck right now and not have a chance to do anything. You wouldn't even have a chance to manufacture the thoughts that then are layered with meaning that you place on it to then project into the world and do something with it, right? And physically manifest that thing, right? Like, you literally would not be able to do that if you were dead. So the fact that you're even alive, it's like all of the little things that we get so caught up in every single day. It's like we fail to realize how much none of that shit matters in the grand scheme of things. Like, in the, from the universal perspective. So it's like we're always so concerned about how we can, make the most out of life instead of just living life. I've noticed that so many times in life, when I'm faced with something new that's coming into my life, whether it's a new relationship or a new job or something big that is generally considered life-changing, right? It's so easy to get lost in, like, okay, how is this going to affect my future? How is this going to play out as I get older? And how can this set me up for success for my eventual death, right? Right? It's just so ironic that we plan all of these things in our life to maximize our life, but when you die, none of that shit matters. Like, none of that shit matters. And the point of that is that, yes, it's good to plan for the future and to make smart decisions and trust your gut on shit and et cetera, et cetera. I'm not saying to just be carefree and liberate yourself or any bullshit like that. What I'm trying to say is that, you know, if everything that we think that matters doesn't matter when we die, then maybe less things should matter. Right? Like, maybe less things should keep us up at night, tighten our chest, raise our blood pressure, right? Because at the end of the day, the people that we love, that we see die, if we're stuck in traffic or something like that, and we're sitting here thinking like, oh, like, poor me, woe is me. You know, it's like, that person would kill to be stuck in traffic, but they're dead. And it's like, okay, well, you know, yeah, if I make all these choices to, you know, to safeguard my future, will that potentially pay off? Yeah, sure. If you make it to that point, right? So instead of being so concerned about how every decision in your daily life affects tomorrow, you know, maybe it might help us to focus a little bit more on how it makes us feel right now, on how we allow certain things to make us feel right now. Because when you really think about it, the present moment is the only thing we actually have. We don't have the future. We don't have the past. We just have right now. And that could be stripped away from us like that. It could be gone. And then, you know, all the shit that we were laid up at night worrying about doesn't matter. Right? Most of the shit that we think matters only matters because we think it matters. In the objective reality of the universe, it doesn't. And so, yeah, so I just feel like getting that up close to death, it helps me put certain things in perspective. I'm not saying that I'm going to, you know, become some, you know, enlightened one and just be completely 100% in the present and just be completely detached from everything else. No, because, and, you know, most of you that are watching this are also not going to do that either. That's just simply not realistic. You know, we can't change hundreds of years of biological instrumentalization of our minds in one day because you watch some fucking YouTube video about some guy's uncle dying. That's not what I'm saying. But I just want to say this as a reminder that most people that are on their deathbed or that have gotten to a peak of their life that they once envisioned as their dream, you know, successful people, old people, whatever. One of the most common themes that I see is when you ask them, like, what's one of your biggest things that you wish that you could have changed, or like your biggest regret or whatever. And it's not like, oh, I could have made more money, or I could have been more successful in my job, or I could have had a better morning routine or some bullshit. Instead, it's, you know, I wish I hadn't been so goddamn emotional about everything. Right? Like, I wish I hadn't been so stressed. Right? Like, that's a very common theme. And, you know, I think that when you hear something like that and then you see someone die, it's like, well, maybe that's a sign that we should just try to live more. We should just try to be grateful for the fact that you're even alive. You get to go outside, experience fresh air, and you get to see this thing that we call reality. And, you know, you have a chance to make some microscopic difference in the world through your actions for that day, right? And it's like, that's a gift, you know? So yeah, I feel like that's what I wanted to say about death and, you know, life in general. Like, I think it's important to, you know, just take a step back sometimes and be like, damn, like, I'm alive as fuck right now. Like, I'm breathing like a motherfucker right now. I got all my limbs. I can walk. I'm healthy. You know, like they say, hey, you know, it's like you have all these problems in the world until you're sick, and then you got one problem. You know, and that's, I guarantee you, that's how my uncle felt. He didn't give a shit about the fact that he couldn't pay rent or that he couldn't work or he couldn't do nothing. He just wanted to get better. You know, and he couldn't. And so, yeah, hopefully this brings you guys a little relief that, you know, hey, could we always be doing better? Yeah. But, you know, sometimes you got to just wake up and smell the grass and be grateful for the most basic things in life. You know, get the fuck off of social media and the constant comparison to fake realities. You know, this is something that I've struggled with for years in many different ways, which we all have. I mean, this social media is a fully integrated part of our society at this point. There's no doubting that. As sad as it may be, it is what it is. But, you know, get the fuck out. I mean, reduce your time on anything that takes you away from classic, regular reality. Stop trying to escape reality. Because the more that you escape reality, the easier it is to feel contempt for reality. Because if you're always distracting yourself with this fake, simulated world of bullshit, then when you bring that lens back down to earth and you look through your own two eyes and you see what's in front of you, how are you ever going to be satisfied? How are you ever going to be content? How are you ever going to appreciate something as boring as breathing and waking up in the morning, when every day you go on Instagram and you see people doing shit that is completely idealistic and fake and narcissistic, all of the egotistical, superficial, non-meaningful things of life. When it's like the most meaningful thing is right in front of you. Like, go touch grass. Right? So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all your guys' support. It really means a lot to me when I hear some of you tell me that you guys really listen to what I'm saying. That means a lot, because, you know, my mission has always been, if I can just help one person, then my mission is complete. So my mission's already complete, and now I'm just doing it for the fun of it and for other reasons that I might get into it in a different video. So thank you for watching. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, subscribe to my Substack. Thank you so much. See you next time.